I was taught a bunch of nonsensical things. Like, for example, that everybody thought the world was flat. Columbus was a super genius. He figured out it was a sphere. He went west, discovered the Americas. Like, at every level, that's just wrong. First of all, the ancient Egyptians discovered the earth was a sphere 2,600 years ago, 2,100 years before Columbus. Actually, let me rephrase what I said. I said they discovered the earth was a sphere. They proved the earth was a sphere. Pretty much everybody knew the earth was a sphere before that. It's just nobody could prove it until the ancient Egyptians sent a fleet of ships around Africa, and they completely circumnavigated Africa. And what they noticed 2,600 years ago is as they were traveling south, the sun's position moved from being in the southern sky directly overhead to the northern sky. And the constellations changed to constellations they'd never seen before. And then as they came around the southern tip of Africa and started heading north, the sun slowly moved from the northern sky or directly overhead back to the southern sky, and their old constellations returned. And they went, there's literally only one shape that could accommodate that experience. The earth is clearly a sphere. Done. So then that begs the question, why are we having this silly conversation about a guy figuring this out 2,100 years later? Now, obviously, one of the problems is Egyptians are brown, and we just delete everything that brown people do. Right? I mean, that's obviously one of the things on the table. But there's also something else that's weird about this story. So, about 5 centuries after the Egyptians proved the earth is a sphere, there's a guy named Eratosthenes who's at the Great Library. And he's reading random stuff. The Great Library is in Alexandria, Egypt. He's reading random stuff, and one of the things he comes across is an account of a guy in Aswan. Aswan is the southernmost Egyptian city, not village. There are villages further south, but it's this last major city. And the guy in Aswan says, I happened to be there on the longest day of the year, and I happened to look into a well, and I noticed it cast no shadow. The wall of the well cast no shadow. And that's all I did. He just made the observation. Eratosthenes goes, oh, this is insane, this is incredible. Because he realizes he now has an angle. And he's read Euclid. All he needs is angle, side, angle. He's now got the triangle. Once he has angle, side, angle, he can do 2 things effectively. One, calculate the size of the earth, or, if he wanted to, calculate the distance to the sun. And so he hires a guy to walk from Alexandria to Aswan, and then he waits until the longest day of the year. He runs over to a well, looks into it, and he sees a shadow. He measures the angle on the shadow. He's now got angle. Now he just needs the length to Aswan. The guy walks to Aswan. He pays him for the trip. The guy tells him how many steps it was. And he's got a problem, right? It's not a straight road, and the earth is curved because it's a sphere. And he figures out a way to weed out all that error, and then he makes his calculation, what he thinks the length going through the planet would be from Aswan to Alexandria. And he nailed the earth's size with 1% error. He was 99% right. Can you imagine? 21 centuries ago, somebody being able to make a calculation that was that accurate, having a guy walk from one city to the other. Like, Eratosthenes was a genius. There's no 2 ways about it. They later on tried to apply this to the distance of the sun. They got a giant number, and they went, that's obviously wrong, and they dismissed it. But it wasn't wrong. It really is a giant number. They just couldn't comprehend that it could possibly be that far. But that's what they did. They figured out the size of the earth. What Columbus does is he rejects the size of the earth. Think about it. When he goes to Isabella to sell her on this scheme of going west to get to Japan and China, the scheme means that Japan and China would be where North America is. The only way that could be true is if the east-west distance of North America was missing and the east-west distance of the Pacific Ocean was missing. Right? For Japan and China to be where North America is, there can't be a Pacific Ocean or a North America. In other words, Columbus believed the Earth was roughly half the surface area that is. In other words, he was wrong about the Earth, not right about the Earth. And, just to make things funnier, he also thought the Earth was pear-shaped. He believed that the Garden of Eden would be, by its nature, very close to heaven. So as a result, where God put the Garden of Eden, the Earth would bulge up. So it was more of a pear shape than a sphere. In other words, it wasn't that Columbus was a genius and he got it right. He was an idiot and he got it wrong. And that's what the Portuguese were telling him. When he went to the Portuguese first, he said, if we go west, we'll be there. The Portuguese are like, you're an idiot. The distance is too great. You'll never make it. We don't have a ship that can cross the east-west distance of the Atlantic, the east-west distance of North America, and the east-west distance of the Pacific. You'll get a third of the way. You'll run out of fresh water and food. Your men will mutiny a sixth of the way because they won't want to go the trip because they'll realize it's a suicide mission. And so they tell him no. He goes to Isabella. Isabella does the math. She's like, if he's right, I'm going to be filthy rich. If he's wrong, I lose 3 ships. Big deal. So she sends him on a suicide, and everybody believes it's a suicide mission. Because everybody knows the size of the Earth. We've known the size of the Earth by that point for 1,600 years.